Hey everyone, so today we're going to be looking into my full LinkedIn everything system, which allows you to go from acquiring leads, sending the requests, to sending messages, to checking for replies, to engaging on their content, and ultimately acquiring you someone to work with. In the more section, you will find there is a download link via Gumroad to get this full system right away. I'm only charging a small fee this month for it, which will be doubling every single month. There'll be more information on this towards the end of the video. Let's just get straight in and learn how the system works. Thank you. The goal of this is not to create a magical system that generates you thousands of leads. It's to create something that works systematically with your inputs that can be tested with and developed over time. In the end, you want to build this in a way that is reflective of your human actions. You have to imagine, how would you go about behaving on LinkedIn? How many profiles would you perhaps engage with on a day? How many profiles would you connect with? How many would you message? Let's say, for example, you do 10 connections, 10 first messages, 10 second messages. That's, 30 actions per day. And then you're doing 30 engagements, so that's 60 actions. Then perhaps you're updating CRM or Airtable database, be it Superbase or whatever. These are a lot of actions that can take a considerable amount of time. So this is a way of automating all of those things. But again, you're not going to exceed that behavior because, again, it just wouldn't make sense to. A human couldn't do it. So, why would you set it up in a way to do so? For this system, there is one main one that you're going to need alongside N8N, which is Unipile. This is the Unipile developer site here. You can find all the API referencing within this documentation. You can feed it into your API LMM of choice. I find Perplexity is pretty good to utilize this alongside this. It can help you build a lot of the cursor nodes, but you can also build them here. You can just add the information and then you can copy the request and then put it into the HTTP nodes here, and then it will build them out for you. It's really, really straightforward. Then a database you can use, in this case, I'm using Airtable. You can obviously connect to the API and it doesn't have limitations. You can also use Google Sheets, but there are some limitations of that you might want to check into. You could also use Superbase if you really preferred it. Again, it's entirely up to you how you want to go about this, depending on whether you want the information available to the client or not, or if you just want to look at it yourself. You could also use the N8N tables that have recently been inputted. I personally wouldn't in the current state they're out now. Maybe in the future they'll be more relevant when you could have more than one sheet. So, first of all, as mentioned, you have to acquire leads. We're using the Unipile search function, and we can see here we got the search, and it essentially goes API VP1 LinkedIn. In this case, it's got search, and then it's got the account ID, and then that's just my account ID. Here I'm putting in the account ID before. And what you want to make sure you do with this is you want to be pulling in this cursor. So each time you generate a search via Unipile, you're going to create a cursor code, which you want to capture to then make sure it's going to the next search. So you can see here, over here, it has 230, which is the highest start. And then here, this one's starting at 240. Every single time, this quick little workflow is going to pull in the cursor and it will update it. And then this node here, which is just a code node, is going to check for the highest cursor. So I'm storing this information in my Airtable, which you can see here. This is one I did recently. And it will keep on checking that every single time to make sure that it is the relevant, that is starting from the correct place. You can set this up to run how you want. I would probably do the search, depending on how many leads you want to do per day. This will do 10 in a go. So 10 per day is probably fine, but you could do 20 per day if you wanted to, or you could have it run 50 in a go. Personally speaking, if you are going to run this, I'd probably keep it towards the 10, 20 per day. And I'll explain further down the line because you're going to want to be capturing more information from them. This just captures surface level, the top level information, such as their profile, their link, their headline, and so on. It doesn't capture their experience, their roles, and everything else. For that, you need to do a profile view, which is slightly different. This only has the limitation of searches, which is up to 1,000 per day, even on a free account, which is as if the same action as you doing a search and then copy pasting the links and then clicking next. You're not actually viewing the profile. That's the LinkedIn search. Next, we have engagement. And with any strategy on any platform, you're going to be wanting tracking who is engaging with your posts, and you're going to be wanting to perhaps automatically connect with them and even further maybe send them a message as well. So this allows you to track your engagement, and you can set it up, to be honest, to any profile. You could even set it up to track your competitors' engagement. It does only have one limitation, which is a limitation of 100 reaction and 100 comments. So if we go here and we go into posts, we can retrieve a post and we can go list all reactions. And you'll see here, it can only get 100 reactions from a post. And it can, here we are, same for comments, list all comments, it can only get 100 comments from a post. You can see the total amount. So you can see like how many people engage with it. Like if it's got 400 or 500 likes, you can see the total, but you can only get 100 people from that. So for most, 100 is more than enough. You know, it's very rare that people will get more than 100 engagements on their posts. If you do see them, it's probably because your network might be flooded with viral content, but this is, you know, very difficult to achieve and sometimes is done via pods and so on. I also wouldn't say that viral content is a way of actually getting business. The vast majority of people I work with have a successful business from running and only get maybe 5-10 likes on their posts and have a successful strategy which nurtures people in their network. So this will break it out and it will get the profiles. So here in LinkedIn Leads, I've just got my link and that's the only link you need to have this working. You can obviously put anyone's link in there and it will scrape their posts. You can set the limit. So here I've got it set to 10, and this is because people engage on content later down the line. Like sometimes you get people engaging, you know, 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe a month later, maybe a few months later, and you know, you want to be tracking that. Depending on how many posts you're doing per month and how often you're running this, you can set that appropriately. You'll then split it out into reactions and comments, and it'll then import them both into Airtable. You can, of course, collect the posts as well. So here I've just got a little one for collecting the information too. So be it content, media, published, likes, comments, shares, impressions, it does gain all that information as well. So if you want to, let's say you want to send a message that's highly personalized towards someone because they engaged on your content and you want to know which post it is, and you want to generate a message from that using an LLM or AI agent tool, you can do that from here. So you can collect that post, you can relate it towards the person, pull in all that information, and then generate a connection message which is highly personalized based upon what they engage with. You could also do this in a different way. If you were connecting to other people from different people's posts, you could reference their post in the connection as well and be like, hey, I saw you engaged on that content. I was also interested in it as well. Would you be open to connecting? You know, something along these lines that just increases the chances of them doing so. I often find you don't really need to do that, mainly because if your profile is shown in the right way and your connection message is appropriate towards the audience that you are connecting with, then it doesn't really need to be that personalized. You can keep it straightforward and simple. Yeah, but again, the possibility is there if you want to. Then we're going to be checking the replies, of course. So even before you're sending out requests, you know, you want to be making sure that any replies that are coming in are being checked for, so that you don't miss them, so that you can do further actions with them, such as engaging on them, so that you can send further information and just understand them a little bit more, and also just to see if what you're doing is actually working. So there's two ways that this can work. One is from the chat ID. So when a message is sent, they will be getting their chat ID will be generated. And in here, you can see I am capturing this information. So here I've got chat IDs. You can see down here, anyone that's gotten a message from me has had their chat ID pulled. And this allows me to check them directly to see if they've sent me a message. So it'll get all the chat IDs, it'll get all the messages from these people. There's no limitations on this. It doesn't, have a limitation on it. It'll then get them all through and then it will group them. And in this instance, it will then be pulling to see who is checking the replies. It will be checking their profile at this point and then updating the list. The reason we have to do this is because essentially when it groups people, again, in this code node, it loses all this information down here. And essentially you need to re-pull it so that you can import it again or to cross-check it in Airtable. It will then, of course, update them to in this case, the replied status, and it will also update them into a replied list. This is pretty important for me personally, as I want to have a separate list so that I can make sure I'm keeping on top of them. Perhaps you want to do some additional work. Maybe you want to go through them again and just see, who they are as people. And this is when the manual work comes in. Once someone replies to you, it does then become something whereby you need to be engaging with this manually. Then the second method, which I think works slightly better because the first method, you have to send a message to them to be able to get the chat ID. So what happens if they connect with you and then they send you a message and perhaps the follow-up to that doesn't really work? Maybe they're going to send you a message and you personally want to reply to them after that because you're like, oh, they're active on the platform, which is always good to see. So if someone sends a message straight away, here we have a way of checking all messages. So I've got it set to, check 100, and it will check the most recent 100 messages that have come through into your system. You don't need to specify dates on this. You can if you want to. If you want to look at older messages, certainly possible. Again, it's just all in the API system. If you just go to list all messages, this is the one it's using. Not to be confused with list all chats. That is different. It will then split them out. So in this case, you'll get 100 messages. You'll check if, in this case, it's the sender. So that's set to 0. So it'll check if they've actually sent me a message. Again, it'll check if it's an email, remove that. It will then group them, and then it will update them in the system. Now, it will be checking their profile here. But because they're connected, it's not going to be too much of an issue. You only have a limit on viewing profiles that aren't in your network. Anyone who's already connected to you, you can view as many of those as you want. I think you can view up to like 500 a day. So it'd be pretty hard to get to that limit. And then you can update the record. Anyone who isn't in here, in your Airtable, because we are doing it via the provider ID, which is this ID here. Let me see, it's this little string of numbers at the end of their URL. So we're cross-checking it with that. And you can see here, we've got the ID here. I only recently started doing this, so I realized it's important to connect. So yeah, we've got the ID in here. And you can use it to cross-check. And then it will only pull those 3 people through. Everyone else will just go into the error. And they'll be left there. You could probably add them into something else if you wanted to. But I don't feel there's any need to record those people. So that's checking replies. So once you've got all that set up and you've got it all working and you can see it's all good, you can then obviously start on the outreach aspect. And this is probably the most complicated part of the system, and it has gone through a few revisions, mainly because there is a lot of complexity in doing this at scale. It's pretty straightforward if you're only doing 20 people, 100 people, but if you're doing thousands of people and you don't want to have to keep on going in and checking it all the time, then there are things that need to happen. One, of course, first of all, you're going to check all the people that haven't been checked in the system. So you can see here, currently I've only got a few people that haven't been checked, but it's going to make sure that these are being checked and that, well, they'll be fed into, it'll check if they're connected. If they're pending, it will change them to pending. If they're not, it will change them to not connected. However, it's also very important to check all the ones that are pending. And you can see there are quite a few now that are left on pending. And the thing is, if you have it checked to not checked and pending at the same time, it may not go through enough of the pending people a day, meaning people can connect with you and they'll send you a message and it won't be recorded in the system. I think there's a way to like automatically do it via a webhook or something, but if you want to just do it in a simple fashion and check on a daily basis, I've got it set up to run daily and it will check if they're connected, pending, or if they've ignored my request. So again, you can see if people have ignored. That's important to record as well, because if they've ignored the request, again, perfectly fine. You just don't want to be like checking that profile every day. You might as well just be moving on, and you could probably remove them from your list after a certain amount of time as well. It's up to you if you want to do that. One important thing to note, which you can do at this point, is I have in here is LinkedIn sections, bit of code, and this is additional to this. So you can see here, this has just got the account thing. But if you want to pull all the information from their profile, so their headline, their experiences, their about section, post, and basically everything from that profile, then you need this little bit in here. Otherwise, it won't do that. You need to be connected with them, of course, as well. So probably not worthwhile doing on, this one, return not connected, but return pending. You could probably do it in there. And you could like update this, so then it will make sure it will then pull through additional information, and you could update your sheet with that should you wish, which would allow you to create a personalized message based upon their roles, their experience, where they're from, what they're doing, you name it. Once you're doing this with the leads as well that you're automatically pulling into this sheet, you're obviously going to want to automatically move them to be sent a request. So I've got this limited to 7 per amount. You'll probably want to start less than this to begin with, maybe like 3 or 4 per interval. It'll then move them to the send request. It'll then, of course, send them a request. And this will then go through the entire thing. The send request, I've got this again. I've got it currently just built into the Airtable system. So you can see here, I've just got it as a formula. So it automatically add their first name. But again, you could add in here some sort of LLM, which would be pulling through their profile information, updating the Airtable with like a personalized message. You could maybe even do this in Airtable itself, because Airtable has a AI built in. And so maybe you could get one, if you fill in all the data along here, so like headline, where they're from, again, what I was saying previously, you could get Airtable to generate a message for you in here, which then could be pulled through. Then it will move them to pending anyway. And if you have sent them a connection request, let's say not too long ago, like a few months ago, but you forgot about it, you removed them from your list or whatever, it will then just change them to ignored, which is of course possible. Maybe you've done it a while ago, but yeah. And then last but not least, I've got a waiting for the pending. And this is because anyone who I've checked for pending, I don't want to be doing that, 3 times a day. I want to leave it for a bit. And so anyone who I've checked and, they're still pending, they haven't done any action, they haven't ignored it, I've just put them to let's see. And then I've just set a wait node so that it'll wait a day, and then that will move them to pending. As simple as that. This is only so that it won't keep on checking them. You've got to imagine yourself as a human. You would probably only check someone once a day, maybe once every other day, to see if they've come in, if that. A lot of the time, you're just waiting to see them connect, and then you'll send them a message. I have also got this set up twice. One for the outreach, which is from the leads you're pulling in the search, and then I've got it also set up for the engagement. So anyone, as I said, who's engaging on your profiles, you want to set up one of these so that it automatically connects with those people. And again, you could send up a connection request. If you're pulling through the post information into the reaction list, and you could then create an automatic message, which is then highly relevant towards them based upon the post they engage with. And be like, hey, thank you for engaging on X, Y, and Z post that I did. Really liked it. Here is looking forward to connecting. However you want to build that. Next, of course, we have the messages themselves. Now, these I would separate and have them in 2 individual workflows, mainly because if it gets to the wait, it pauses the wait node, it pauses the one below. And so you want these obviously to be working at the same time. and it'll essentially pull everyone who's connected. It'll then get a random amount. It'll then update them to the delay, and then it'll put them into the wait node. So then it'll wait a couple days. Up to you how you want to do this, how long you want to wait before they get the first message, and then it will send them the first message. Same for this one as well. It will send the second message, and it will then wait a few days, and then it will pull them through. Now, one thing to note, which can happen, is if they get through to this, and let's say they send you a message after like a day to your connection request, unlikely. Most people will reply pretty quickly. If like once you've sent a connection request and they get that message, they normally reply right away, in which case they would get moved to replies and don't have to worry. But let's say they do it later than that, and they've already been pulled through and they get pulled through to here. They could potentially get the message after you've already started engaging with them, in which case either A, you're around and you can delete that message, or B, you would need to set up something after here so that it would check that they have not been moved to replied. So you would need to, like, all the ones that have come through here, you need to do a check record that they are still on first delay. And if here they're still on first delay, and if all is good, it would then move them through to continue the message. And if not, it would then move them to replied, or just leave them. It wouldn't update anything. So that is the two messaging ones. Again, I've just got these messages set out in here, so you can see I've just got the formulas, and I've got it pretty straightforward. So, you want to choose how your messages are. I would highly recommend going through a few different types and testing out messages that work and experimenting with them. Again, you could connect some sort of LMM. You could use Airtables already built in AI systems to generate the message. LinkedIn also has an automated LinkedIn messaging system. We're using AI, which seems to be pretty good as well. Whether that can be fed into here is to be seen, but this would be an improvement that I'm working on currently. Alrighty, and then last but not least, we have, let's say, what I would like to call the pied de résistance, the engagement workflow. Now, this is also one where you're going to duplicate it and you're going to have it working in two ways. One, on an engagement list that you're going to create. And the reason you'll have this is you want to find people that are valuable towards your network, people that are going to be improving your presence. No, so not only engaging on your content, but also people that you can engage on their content and generate good comments, which other people will see and improve the value of your work on the LinkedIn platform. So I would build these out, and you want to have like a list. 20, 30 people to begin with is more than enough. I've got like 100 people here, and you want to be updating it on like a monthly, bi-monthly basis, taking people out, add people in, making sure they are valuable towards what you're trying to build on the online space. This is super important. And here, essentially what it is doing is it's pulling through everyone who is complete on this list. So you can see here, I've got it set to complete and so on. And I will move them to engage. You can set up a random amount. I probably would do this if your list is more than 20 people. You don't want to be engaging all of them at once. This is crazy. I would set it up so that it's only doing like 20 to 30 at a time. And then it will pull through the ones who you want to engage from. It will check if they're a person. It will then again do a random amount. It will get their ID. It will then get their posts. This actually could probably be removed, mainly because we're storing the ID at this point. So you may not need this, but I haven't tested it without. So for now, getting their ID, getting their posts, we're then going through a few checks. And it's up to you how you want to do these, entirely up to you and your strategy. But I personally, for example, I'm checking if it's a repost. I don't want to be engaging on reposts. I'm checking the date. So in this case, I've put it to 5 days. You can choose the date that you want, the amount of time that you want. If you're doing people that aren't that active on LinkedIn, perhaps you want to set it to a month or more, or you want to remove that, up to you. And then get in the comments. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to check to see if I've already engaged on that. And because I'm I'm personally doing this, setting this to go every 2 days. If I've already engaged on their post, I don't want to be doing so again. So here I'm just checking the comments, and all you'd have to do in here is just update this to your unique ID and your name, and it would make sure that you are not commenting on it again. And so here, of course, we're checking the comment, and if all of these things have happened or any of these things have happened, it'll just move them to delay, and it'll delay them to another time. If all of these things are good and I haven't done any of this stuff and this all works, then of course it'll get moved to the engagement system. Currently on the engagement system, I'm just using Claude Solid 4. It seems to be doing pretty well. Since they released 4.5, it's now quite cost effective, so I don't really see any reason to move it. And I've then created a persona which acts in my style. Now, this is super important for you to build out for yourself. And, I, for example, have made sure that it doesn't use the M dash because this looks way too much like AI. I've had to tell it that I don't have kids because it was making up that I had kids. I had to put things that I was aligning to. I had to say, for example, I've traveled around the world and I surfed in a lot of places, but I've yet to go to Africa. It was mentioning Africa, for example. I had to specify where my clients are from. There are a lot of little things that you can add into this, which I think are important so that it can create comments which relate towards you and about your life. And then, you can talk about some books that you've read. You can say words that you don't want to use. Like, for example, spent this amount of time. It kept on saying that. I don't like that. It kept on saying the word sell. I don't want to use that. I would never use that myself. And then, we just got the post text down here. So this is important for you to build out and make it relevant towards you. Add your own things that relate towards your life. So it's going to create comments which, in the end, comments that you would make. And transparently, this is now, once you've done the testing on it and you've got it set up, it works really well. It's actually generating comments better than what I could possibly imagine without a lot of thought on my end anyway. It'll then comment on the post, it'll then like on the post, it will then delay them. One caveat, of course, is that what it does is if you've got 20 people going through here, it'll, do the comments, 20 people. It has a delay, so it's set to do like one every 20 seconds. You could put this 40 seconds, it's up to you. It'll then do all the likes. You may want to create some sort of loop around here, so then it comments and then likes and then so on, but could cause an issue. So I've just set it up so that it will do the 20 comments, it'll do the 20 likes. It's not really too much of an issue if there is a delay between them. It could be as simple as like, you personally forgot to like the post and you just commented on it. And then you go back and like it. This is fine. But again, up to you how you want to run that. And this is also why I wouldn't recommend doing like 100 at a time, because also this would be crazy. This would be such a large delay between you commenting on a post and you liking on a post that it may look a little bit too suspicious. Again, thinking about how humans behave and react and what they do, I think it's important to keep that in mind. And then, of course, it will set the delay, and then it will wait for a few days, and then it will move them to complete. Simple as that. Now, that's the first one for engagement. I then also got this set up to engage on people. So I've created a second one of these, and this is for a sales engagement one. So here, I've got a list called Engage, and this is for everyone that is connected or pending. So anyone that's moved and connected or pending, I will then have them manually moved over into my engagement list. And the reason for that is because if I have connected or they're pending, to increase the chances of them replying to my messages, I want to, of course, engage on their content. Naturally, I would do this normally. So this will find all those people, and then it will duplicate those leads, and it will move them into an engagement list. So yes, you will be duplicating records, but I can't think of any other way to do this without it getting overly complicated. You couldn't do it in the same sheet because it would just be moving too many of these around. You need to have it separate, and you could probably cull it eventually so that it's only once they've been engaged with perhaps a couple times, or they're set to only engage with once a month, there is a delay and they're delayed for like a month and then they're moved back into the list. And this just keeps them on your radar so that when the time does come, because a lot of the time people, they don't buy right away. They need to learn a little bit more about you. They need to understand if they can trust you. A lot of the time I will send someone a message and engage on their content. And then maybe 6 months later, a year later, a few months later, whatever, they will then reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm ready to work with you now. And so this is what you're doing, is you're keeping people on top of your radar, and so they're aware of you. And so small things, doesn't take much work. Again, you may want to set up some systems so that it's not doing too much of this and it's not going through so many people all the time. And again, keeping it within the limitations of what you personally could do within the day. So that's the full LinkedIn automate everything system. It's obviously quite complex. There's a lot here whereby you would require testing. I would highly recommend doing this on a small scale to begin with. Start with 5 people per day, see how that builds out, test it on all the different levels, start with one of the systems, then build the second, add the next, make sure all of them are working. It's not something that you can just set up and leave. It is something that you need to be manually checking on, a daily basis to making sure that it's not going rogue, that it is actually working. And ultimately, if you do that, it will then turn into business. I wouldn't recommend setting this up and then just leaving it and just praying and hoping it works. In the end, it's something that you need to be looking after and treating as, an extension of yourself so that it actually returns the investment that you put into it. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer. There will be a download for this, and you can get this full PDF via Gumroad. There is a small fee right now this month. I'm only charging $9 for this full system. You can, of course, build it out yourself if you want to spend the time. The documentation's there. You can see everything here. And there's other videos showcasing this in a step-by-step basis on my platform for every single one of these. So you're more than welcome to build this yourself. But if you want to just get it now and save, let's say, hours and hours and hours of time, this month I'm currently providing it for $9. Every month I'm going to double it thereafter, just for the sake of it. There's no reason other than the fact that I want to. I will also be providing a step-by-step within that download tutorial on how to build this yourself. So this has been more of an overview. That will be more of a tutorial, and there will also be some additional worksheets included that can help enhance your business. Feel free to also send me any personal direct questions should you wish to have further support in setting this up. Looking forward to hearing from you. Looking forward to reading your comments. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.